Today we're going to go through the quick and easy process of installing this HomCom illuminated bathroom mirror in my bathroom, which will require running a new electrical outlet to provide power to it. Before doing anything electrical or any cutting, we're going to want to go ahead and turn off the breaker for the bathroom. While most bathrooms are supposed to have a GFCI outlet which could also cut the power, the breaker is always the safer bet. To add power to the outlet that we'll be adding, I'll be getting power from the electrical outlet that is already in the bathroom. If you had attic access, you could feasibly get power from the wire in the ceiling and then go straight down into the stud bay. However, that's not always an option and may not be feasible for those who do have the option. What I'll be doing is removing the electrical box from the wall and going through the hole that's already there to run a wire over to my next stud bay. Start off by removing the cover plate for your outlets and see what kind of electrical box is there. In my case, since I remodeled this bathroom myself, I have an old work style box that holds to the drywall via small ears that are controlled by Phillips head screws. If you have a new work box, which is nailed into the stud, it's a bit more difficult to remove and would require changing out the box as well, but they're only $1 or $2 from Home Depot and are simple to change. As for removing a new work box, you would want to use an oscillating tool with a metal cutting blade to cut the nails, or you can slowly work to remove the nails using a pair of pliers and physically pulling it out. Since I don't have one in this wall, I can't demonstrate that, but may be able to do so in a future video as I do more work on this house. With the box removed, we can use a cell phone to look inside of the stud bay to see if there's anything we need to be concerned about, which, in my case, would be the wires that are attached to the stud. You can even see that one of them is stapled as well, meaning it's very difficult to move. From here, we need to measure and mark where we want the outlet to be for the mirror. I want it centered on the back of the mirror, so I'm just doing some basic measurements to put it approximately in the center. My bathroom vanity is 30 inches and the mirror itself is 24 inches. So I'm placing the center point 15 inches off the wall, which splits the difference between 24 and 30 inches, or splitting the 6 inches down to 3 inches, and then adding half of the mirror width to it, which is 12 inches, so you get a total of 15. For the height, I went with the difference between the top of my electrical outlet and the ceiling. I don't remember what the measurements were for that one though, but it would be 15 inches plus the difference due to the mirror being 30 inches tall. One thing to pay attention to is where your studs are to make sure you're not trying to put your electrical box on top of a stud. Interior studs are typically 16 inches on center. In our case, we know where a stud is due to being able to see it in the wall after we remove the electrical box. You can measure how far away that is, and then add 16 inches to it, and know where your two studs are. And just make sure the electrical box ends up somewhere between that area, and you're fine. Once it's marked out, you want to grab your old work box and level, and mark out where you'll be cutting with your drywall saw. The level is to make sure that your box is square, which isn't necessarily important in this case since it's going to be behind a mirror, but it's good practice regardless. When it comes to using the drywall saw to cut out the piece, try not to put the saw deeper than necessary. I typically only use the first inch or two of the saw when cutting. The reason for this is you likely don't know what's behind where you're cutting and don't want to risk hitting a wire or a pipe. In my case, I know there's nothing there, but that's not the point. I still don't plunge the saw very deep in the wall. Ideally, you want to remove the piece of drywall that you're cutting out, but more than likely the knot is going to fall into the stud bay. It's fine if this happens. Check inside of the wall again and see if there's anything you need to take note of. Nothing in my case, except for the wires on the other side of this stud. Now the fun part, drilling a hole into the stud so we can pass a wire through it into the next stud bay where our electrical connection is. I originally had planned to go from the 2-gang box side to do this, but thanks to the wires being there, I'm having to go through from our newly cut out single gang box. You'll notice I'm going very slow with the wood bit to ensure I don't hit or damage the wires on the other side of the stud. This is something that you'll have to do by feel alone, which does make it more difficult. Once you feel the drill has less resistance on it, that means the tip or one of the edges has broken through the wood. Once I felt that, I stopped drilling and felt with my fingers to see if I would be able to pass my wire through the hole. In my case, I could, but if I didn't feel the hole was large enough, I would have continued to drill very slowly through the stud. I was able to avoid the wires and not damage them by doing this. Primarily the not damaged part, not necessarily the avoid part. Now we're on to the lemon squeezy part. I mean, easy peasy. Same thing. Anyway, take your wire and guide it to the newly created hole and angle it down to your existing electrical connection. I always like to leave a few inches extra whenever I'm working to ensure if I ever need to pull out the electrical box in the future, I can easily do so. This whole project is a perfect example of that. Once you get the wire down and cut to your desired length, go ahead and cut back the shielding and strip about half an inch of shielding off of the black and white wire to prepare for attaching them to the outlets. Now we need to add our old work box to the hole we cut. The reason we call it old work and new work is that's how they're listed at Home Depot and big box stores, so you know which ones to get. Old work is for going into drywall, new work nails into the stud. Anyway, I'd prepared this one for a different project that I never did, so one of the wire guide tabs is already gone. But the way you work with these typically is to use a flathead screwdriver, or your finger, and just push the tab into the box. From there, you run your wire through the newly created hole, and the tab applies pressure to the wire to stop it from moving or slipping out. You'll frequently see the tabs cut off, which you're not supposed to do, but it makes it easier to slide the wire back into the wall. Once the wire is through and the box is inserted into the hole, go ahead and use a Phillips head screwdriver to tighten the two screws, which pull the tabs tight against the wall and hold the box in place. Hey, look at that. I had to push tab in. Maybe I should put this video first in editing. Oh well. Anyway, push your tab in for where you want to run your new wire and then prepare the box. In this case, I need to remove one of the outlets so I can attach our newly ran wire to it. Amazingly, these outlets can have up to 4 wires attached to them, meaning a total of 3 outlets piggybacked off of them, which is kind of insane. Most residential wiring is done on 15 amp circuits, which should have a maximum of 8 outlets attached to it. You're not likely to know how many outlets are attached to each breaker you have, and a lot of homes actually have more than that in most bedrooms and living rooms. Standard electrical code aside, we're about ready to attach our wire. Positive, or load in this case, is going to be your black wire. This goes to the gold terminals on your outlet. Neutral is going to be the white wire and goes to the silver terminals. The ground, which is bare copper, goes to the green terminal. Now, most electricians will tell you that you have to use the screw terminals for attaching wires, and that is the best one to use. You would create a loop in your wire and attach it over the terminal. However, if you have a new outlet and you know the back push-in terminal has never been used, which they are single use, you can use that. Just always do a pull test on the wire, which is where you just pull on the wire and make sure it's fully seated, after you insert it to make sure it's fully seated and will not pop out. That is the biggest concern with these. And I apologize for the less than stellar video footage here. I thought I was in frame and apparently I wasn't. Anyway, I use the push terminals in the back of my outlet, attaching the black wire to the gold sides push terminal and the white wire to the silver sides push terminal. Then I just kind of wrapped my ground wire around the existing one. Not really the best practice there, but it was the easiest way to do it. Anyway, once you have it all attached, you then need to push your outlet back into your box and attach it back with your screws. You don't want to tighten the screws all the way down, because when you go to put your plate cover back on, you probably will have to adjust it ever so slightly, so just be prepared for that. Now, with the power ran to the new electrical box, go ahead and put your original box back in the wall and screw in your 2 Phillips head screws. The last step of attaching wires to the existing outlet is where, if you had a new gang electrical box originally, you would have swapped everything over to an old work box. If there's interest in how to do that, simply let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll make a short video on it. Since this mirror requires a recessed outlet, you have to buy a specialty outlet, a recessed outlet. They're like $10, which is annoying, but it's besides the point. But there are multiple types available for a wide array of scenarios. In this case, we want the simple one that gives us 2 outlets. It has your gold and silver terminals to designate load, neutral, and of course a green terminal for ground. For the ground wire, make a loop in it and attach it to the green terminal, making sure the loop has full contact with the screw. And just like last time, black goes to the gold terminals and white goes to the silver, so just push it in and, yeah, well, accidents happen. So now we have to remove that wire. There's a small hole just above where you insert the wire. Place a thin, flathead screwdriver, or similar object, into the hole, and it releases the tension of the wire, and you can pull it out. Now, as I mentioned earlier, these are single-use ports. It should never be used again, as it may not hold tension. So when I insert the wire properly, I have to use the other one. Fortunately, there are 2 per outlet, so it's not a big deal. Once the wires are inserted, go ahead and place the outlet into your box, and then tighten down the 2 screws to hold it in place. Now it's time to make sure we did everything right and turn the power back on. Simply insert your plug tester and go flip your breaker. This was just a 4-minute unboxing video that we've sped up 5 times, so now's a good time to do our usual shilling. If you like the content I'm putting out, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to stay up to date on all new content as it comes out. Now, to make sure we place our holes in the right spot, we need to measure from the bottom or top of the mirror, whichever is easier for your install, which in my case was from the bottom, to see where to place the wall anchors. Then, measure across the 2 keyholes and see what the distance is. Assuming quality control gets them all the same, mine were 22¼ inches apart. Go ahead and mark that on your wall, which you can see I've already done here, as I've realized earlier on that footage of me measuring things turns out terrible. Now that we have the mounts marked out for the mirror, we can drill a hole for the wall anchors. I used a 1/4" bit for the anchors here. While I'm not a fan of the anchors that the mirror comes with, they do work. After you have both anchors inserted, go ahead and screw in the supplied screws, leaving 5 to 10 millimeters of distance between the wall and the screw. Time to actually hang the mirror, which isn't the easiest thing ever. First things first, plug it into the outlet and you should see the blue light for the on-off switch light up. When it comes to getting the mirror onto the keyholes, the easiest way to do it is put your finger next to the keyhole and then feel for the screw so you're at least somewhat close to it. Then the mirror will slide down over the keyhole and lock in. The mirror only needs 2 screws, but if you'd like to make sure it doesn't rock back and forth when you press the button, you can always add some double-sided tape to the bottom. Ideally would have been for Homcom to make the mirror attach at 4 keyholes, but for whatever reason they designed it so it can only attach with 2 at a time. If you try to attach the mirror to the top and bottom keyholes, you'll quickly realize that they go in opposite directions and literally cannot be used at the same time. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this process of installing a light-up mirror in a bathroom, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask down in the comments section below. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care.